Hey, it's Willie Crawford here, coming to you from beautiful Niceville, Florida, where I am doing a Facebook Live. I have decided, I've committed actually to doing a Facebook Live every day for the next 30 days at a minimum, and I'm going to try to fit those Facebook Lives in every Monday through Saturday at 10 a.m. Central, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll do them in the afternoon on Sundays if I do them at all. Sundays is sort of my down day. Uh, and when I'm traveling, as I'll be doing at the end of this month, for example, then the 10 o'clock time slot will be inconvenient. So on those days, I will post on social media and in emails when the Facebook Live is going to be. And I'm sort of waiting for a few people to give a few people time to join us. But I can go ahead and get started anyway. I wanted to talk to you about making decisions, making tough decisions. I spend a lot of time consulting with people who are mostly wanting to start their own online business, and they struggle with what do I do? And my question is, what do you want to do? What do you enjoy doing? What's your background in? They don't say what do I do. They say how do I make money online? And my question is, what do you want to do? What do you enjoy doing? What are your talents, your skills, your training? And from that, I can help them to explore what they might want to do to earn a living over the internet. But even then, I don't make the decision for them. I help them to make the decision. I'm a counselor, if you will. So we put the options on the table. We explore the pros and cons of those options. And then after doing that, they make the decision. And people are hesitant to make the decisions for numerous reasons. One of those reasons is they're afraid of making the wrong decision. And so instead of making the wrong decision, they don't make any decision. And they don't acknowledge that not making any decision is a decision. The decision is not to make a decision, or it's to stay where you are. It's not to change anything in your life. So that is a decision. Doing nothing is a decision. And I see Joel has joined us. Joel lives right near me. So thanks for joining us, Joel. Uh, and I see Ozer has joined us. I'm not sure where he's at now. He was in South America at one time. But good to have you joining us. What I'm talking about is today making decisions, and the fact that many people are afraid of making decisions because they're afraid they'll make the wrong decision. They're looking at starting an online business, for example, and they've heard there's all kinds of money to be made online, but they're like, well, what do I do? Do I become a copywriter or a graphic artist or a joint venture broker, a programmer? Do I write my own ebooks? Do I make my own videos? Do I become a blogger? Do I become a speaker? What do I do? And my answer is, what do you want to do? I'm at 60. I insist upon only doing things that I enjoy doing. There was a point in my life when I would do things because I needed the money. Not I wouldn't do unethical or things that I felt bad about, but I would do things that if I didn't need the money, I probably wouldn't do. Like most people who have a 9 to 5 job, many of those people hate their job, but they get up and do it anyway because they need the money to support their families and put food on the table and a roof over their heads. And so you have to at some point decide, well, is this fulfilling? Is this living my life purpose and all those things? And so that all rolls into my decisions on what I'm doing now and the lifestyle I'm building for myself right now. Uh, and today, I'm discussing making decisions, but I did have someplace I was taking that. And what I wanted to talk about was making tough decisions when you don't have complete information. Now, I come from a fairly unique background, and I was in the military for 20 years. And in the military, I was responsible for making really tough decisions. And people all the way up to like 4-star generals depended upon me to make those decisions. And they didn't want me to say, I don't know what you should do, sir. They wanted me to say, I recommend that we do this based on the information I was able to gather. But very often I was never able to gather enough information to say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is what we should do. So I had to make decisions with incomplete information, with incomplete or imperfect information. And I worked with numerous people, individuals, who they could not make a decision. They'd be given a project and they would study it and fire off emails and make phone calls to 100 people trying to gather data to help them to make a better decision. But in the end, the bosses would get frustrated with them because they never moved the project forward. Me, I managed a budget that was about $50 million a year, and my job was to make decisions that impacted where airplanes were assigned, who was contracted to let go, all kinds of things like that. Where should we put our troops? How much money should we put towards funding hospitals and all kinds of things? And I had to make recommendations that went all the way up to our politicians, because the politicians allocated money to the military, and the military, parsed it out. And if you didn't spend the money given to you one year, then you weren't given the same amount the next year. So you had to justify that. And that was all a part of my job as a young captain. It's like, give me the responsibility for deciding how to spend $50 million of the United States government's money. And so I learned to make tough decisions in the absence of perfect information. And I learned to live outside my comfort zone. You see, a lot of you, you want to accomplish great things, but you're actually not comfortable going for them because nobody has done what you want to do. Your friends haven't dared to think, well, gee, it'd be nice to make $100,000 a year when they're making like 30, or if they're making 100,000, like a lot of them can't imagine making 200,000 or half a million. Way back in 2002, I sat around a hotel room down in the Florida Keys with my friend John Reese, and we were talking. And John basically pointed out that if you're making $20,000 to $30,000 a year, it's hard to imagine making 50. But if you're making 50, you can envision doubling that. And if you can imagine making 100,000, you can imagine making 200 or 300. And it went on up to okay, now we're getting into the millions, and you can imagine that if you see it's possible, but you stair step that up. And so a part of that process is getting outside your comfort zone. Most of us sabotage ourselves. If we start having too much success, we start feeling uncomfortable. And actually, part of it is the people that we hang around. We make them feel uncomfortable because we're accomplishing more than they are. I talk to friends every day who are in minimum wage jobs. I'm not putting them down. They like some aspects of their jobs, being able to be social with friends and things like that. But they, constantly complain about the hours and the boss and, the work conditions and coworkers. And I'm like, well, why don't you do something different? But see that they are not comfortable with trying to do something different, And one of the things that I've done recently is step outside my comfort zone, and I emphasize that a number of times. For example, I'm a farm kid from North Carolina who grew up on welfare and didn't have a lot of wealthy role models for sure. I mean, we had no money, so I didn't learn how to handle money and all those things. And yet I looked over at millionaires and billionaires, and I looked at what they're doing, and I learned from them. If I'm over on YouTube watching something, it's probably Warren Buffett or somebody like that, talking about how to avoid getting over your head and bogged down in debt, and things like that. So I study the successful people, and then I have the audacity to say to myself, I need to change. I need to associate with people who have accomplished what I want to accomplish. I need to be around those people. I need to learn from those people. Because the thing is, if all you do is hang around Baroque people, and take advice from your broke brother-in-law or even your uh, accountant or financial advisor who's making minimum wage. He studied all the stuff in school on how to make investments and things like that. But his advice is often, here's your investment you should make, and it's based on the fact that he earns a commission if you buy into a mutual fund or something that he recommends. So you don't listen to those people. You listen to people who are doing what you want to do. And I submit you need to start associating with people who've done a lot more than you think is possible for you. And I'm going to even nudge you, some of you, to dare step outside your comfort zone and hang around people who you view as out of your league. You know, for example, um, at the end of this month, September 26th through 28th, I'll be in New York City at Carnegie Hall. Um, and for those 3 days, there'll be all kinds of instruction from speakers on how to do different things, people that are in television and newspapers and in journalism and things like that. But all kinds of successful people, people that I watch and subscribe to their newsletters, people like Neil Patel, who almost everything I know about how to rank on Google and get their attention and all that, I learned from him. Lisa Nichols, who her highest grade in grade school was like a C, and she could barely give a speech, was told that, you know, she should never get a job. It requires her to get a speech or to write. And now she's giving motivational speeches. And I watched some of her presentations on YouTube where she talks about growing up as a single mother, raising her child. And she was so dedicated to her child that she said, you know, my child's not going to be pulled into the gangs and all those things. She said, not on my watch, you know. And me, she was very inspirational. And I watch people like that. At this event in New York City, these people, there's like 6 different categories. There's authors and there's entrepreneurs and there's 6 different categories of people. One is what it's called, I have to look it up, but the people who are doing the new media stuff, basically. Uh, I looked at all the people that are attending this thing, and I said to myself, um, I looked at it and said, I want to go to this thing. And then the event sponsor reached out to me and said, you know, I've been watching you forever, and I'd like to. Now, I'd like for you to come and get a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I thought, what? He said, yeah. He said, we're also going to give one to Michael Gerber and to Dan Kennedy and Martha Stewart. And I thought, wow, I'm going to get the exact same awards as Dan Kennedy, Martha Stewart, and Michael Gerber. I thought, well, that's pretty cool because people will see me on stage with them, holding the same award, and then on the red carpet posing with event attendees. And that in itself, first of all, is me stepping out of my comfort zone because I've practically, I don't know, not worship, but I've admired Dan forever. In fact, I have all these books by Dan. This is Dan's No BS Business Success book. And this is his No BS Pricing Strategy. And there's No BS Marketing to the Affluent, which I really love because he taught me going to be selling things, sell to people who have money, you know, and then he tells you how to reach those people and to sell to those people. And this is No BS Wealth Attraction for Entrepreneurs. You see, I'm a big Dan Kennedy fan, and this is Time Management for Entrepreneurs. And I took a lot from this book. Dan and one of his co-workers, Lee Miltier, they are so adamant about time management that, at least at the time that I was listening to her, doesn't do her own grocery shopping. She said, my time is too important for me to do grocery shopping. So she hands it to somebody else to do. And, you know, she's like, you know, if I can be making $500 to $1,000 an hour, why would I spend that time walking around a supermarket squeezing cucumbers or whatever? And so she doesn't do that. And a lot of what they teach sank in. You know, Dan Kennedy, Dan's not doing that well right now. In fact, they admitted him to hospice about a week, maybe a week and a half ago, because he had a number of ailments, And the complications from those ailments causes doctors to say, we don't see a lot of hope in you recovering. And so Dan made the tough decision to put himself in hospice. And people started hearing about that, and we started sending him letters and cards and sending him messages through channels over the internet. And his family members would get these messages and read them to Dan. And all of a sudden, Dan perked up, and you know, honestly, a lot of people thought that he wouldn't live more than a day or two in hospice. And the doctors, even some of them said, maybe a couple of hours. In a week or 10 days later, last I heard, Dan is doing quite fine. So when I heard he was going to be at this event, I was looking forward to meeting him, and I still am. I haven't given up hope on meeting him, but I've gone to his events before. It's just that now I'm on stage and put in sort of the same category. So I don't consider myself in the same category as him or Martha Stewart, who's had a lifestyle and cooking show forever. But it'd be sort of neat to step into their circles. And that's what I'm going to challenge you to do, is to dare to step outside your comfort zone. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to check out this link right here, which is the Living Legends Award Show. And it's an event where first 2 days, the 26th and 27th, a lot of speakers teaching things, some pretty deep business things. And then on the 28th, a lot of that is the award ceremonies. And it's in New York City. It does require you to stretch outside your comfort zone a little, because it's right off of Times Square. In fact, I'll be at a hotel that's overlooking Times Square, which aren't the cheapest hotels in the world. So, when you look at, if you're traveling from across the country, you have airfare and you have your hotels and taxis or whatever. I have a limo that's going to pick me up at LaGuardia and take me to my hotel and take me back and all those things. That's not cheap, but it's stepping outside, it's stepping up, it's saying, I'm changing my life. I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. I'm ready for something bigger and better. And that's a simple decision. And that's what this discussion is all about, is making decisions. And again, the decision to do nothing is a decision, whether you realize it or not. So how do you make these tough decisions? Well, you gather as much information or data as you can, and then you say, okay, based on what I know, this is the right thing to do. But then I believe that you should then turn around and bounce that idea off of someone else, someone whom you respect. Because what will often happen is they will think of things or see things that you didn't see. And I'll give you an example. Last night, I was talking to an individual that I'm helping out some. He's building out some websites. I've gotten into what are referred to as rank and rent websites. These are websites that you go out and you purchase, and you get them ranked for certain terms, and then you turn around and you rent them to brick and mortar business owners for the most part. So like I live near Destin, Florida. If I could get Destin cosmetic surgeon or Destin dentist, then anybody looking for a cosmetic surgeon, a plastic surgeon, they would go to the search engine and type in Destin cosmetic surgeon. And naturally, if my guys showed up at the top, well, a patient for a cosmetic surgeon is worth a lot of money. So that guy, he knows he's going to make thousands of dollars off of one new customer. A lot of them have, insurance that pays for it, so they're not worried about it anyway. Or a cosmetic dentist or a DUI lawyer, all those things they pay a lot per client. And so those business owners don't mind spending a lot of money. And so I teach people to build rank and rent websites. And so as I started working with this one guy, he went out and he purchased a bunch of domain names, and he showed me some of those. And I asked, why did you buy this one? And he explained that he knew someone in his hometown who ran that type of business. And while I understood that logic, I pointed out to him the flaw in that thinking. He purchased a domain name that was ideal for a particular person, a particular business owner he had in mind. But suppose that business owner did not want to buy or rent that domain name. He stuck with it. And I said, one of the first things you should do is, uh, one of the first things I do when looking at a domain name, especially if I'm looking at a city plus a profession, if you were to look for I don't know, a podiatrist in your area, and you just went to Google and typed in podiatrist, uh, the the intelligence, the artificial intelligence is there that can often pinpoint where you are without you telling the system where you are. It knows based on your IP address or whatever where you are. I mean, I use WeatherBug all the time. It knows where I'm at, so it always shows me local weather. I don't have to tell it where I'm at. Um, a lot of the search technology can do that. So if you go on your computer or your phone and you just type in Domino's Pizza, it's probably going to default and show you the Domino's pizzas in your area. You don't have to tell it the city, but um, when I was talking to this guy, I said you don't have to target a business in your area. I said what you should do is if you're going to buy domain names that you're going to rent to business owners, you should look for names that can be rented to people regardless of where they live, the business owners, regardless of where they live. And I gave him the example, I'll give you the example of the name Fayetteville. There's a Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is near where I grew up. It's a major American city where Fort Bragg and Pope Air Force Base are, and they've combined now. But it's a huge city and a lot of military active duty. It's like Fort Bragg is the largest military installation in the United States, um, and um, it's huge. So if I were looking for targeting a cosmetic surgeon, I'd probably try to get Fayetteville cosmetic surgeon. And I explained to my friend, I said, the reason I would go for the name Fayetteville is there's more than one Fayetteville in the United States of America. There's a Fayetteville, Arkansas, for example, but there's a bunch of others. And the reason there's so many Fayettevilles is because most of those were named after General Lafayette, who played a role in the American Revolutionary War. So a lot of cities decided to name themselves. A lot of settlements decided to name themselves after Lafayette, and they called themselves Fayetteville. And I showed him using a site. I said, if you just type in the city name at this site, you'll see there's like 30 or 40 cities with the same name. I said, and this site gives you the populations of those cities. I said, so when you're looking at, targeting a specific term, a specific niche, and you want to look at, okay, how many cities are there that have a large enough population? And not only that, coming from an economics background, I want to know who the people are in those towns. Are they, I want to know the poverty level, the education level, the average age of the people in the town. I want to know the average cost of housing in the town. I want to know if the town or city is growing or decreasing in population. I want to know all those things, and all that data is available. I mean, that's plain census data, but there are sites that summarize that. And so, when I look at targeting a city, for example, I explained to him, I said, I don't like to go for cities smaller than 30,000 in population, but there are lots of cities, with New York City, I think has like 10 million people. It's the largest city in the United States of America. But that doesn't mean anything to me, because if I were targeting, say, somebody who owns a shop that repairs transmissions, if I lived in one borough of New York City, say Queens, I'm not going to drive my broken down car, to Manhattan or Long Island or, a different borough of New York City. So you don't, in this case, target the entire city. You target specific geographic areas. And I showed how to dig down that, because if you ask somebody from New York City, where are you from? The odds are they're going to tell you what section of New York City they're from. That's the way they think. And so you have to get inside the mindset there. And then, but I also look at, okay, so what's the demographics? Are these people making enough money to be able to pay a, a lawyer or a plastic surgeon or whoever a lot of money. A realtor, are they able to spend a lot of money on housing? If they're not, I really don't want to target that. I don't want to target some podunk town where the average house is going for $30,000 because those people can't afford to pay a realtor's can't afford to pay high prices on housing. Therefore, the money is not there for the realtor to pay a lot to rent my sites from me. So I go for affluent cities. I showed you Dan Kennedy's book, Marketed to the Affluent. You go to where the money is. I appreciate helping the poor, but I say go out, go to where the money is, and then you take the money that you make. You earn the money first because the world runs on money, like it or not, and then you can spend that money. You can give it to charity. You can help out poor people. I want to make a lot of money myself, but I don't need a lot of money to live. I could live in a cabin on the side of a mountain someplace and be perfectly happy. My wife wouldn't, but I would be. And so I don't need a lot of money, but I want a lot of money because I want to be able to give it to things I care about, like feeding the homeless, helping people out of poverty, cancer research, things along that line. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to feel fulfilled, and it takes money to do that. So anyway, I going back to decision making. I basically showed my friend, so this is how you make a decision about what city to target and what niche to target. You look at where the money is, and I see my friend Randy has joined us, and Chuck has joined us, and my friend John Cornetta has joined us. John and I hung out together on marketers cruises and all over the place, and so I learned a lot from him over the years. And I thank you guys for joining us. Well, what I'm doing is I was talking about making tough decisions, and then I squeezed in a commercial for the fact that I'm going to be at the Living Legends Award September 26th to 28th in New York City, and prompted people to get out and meet, Michael Gerber and Dan Kennedy. Hopefully he'll be there, and Martha Stewart and myself, and people like Neil Patel and a lot of other fairly famous people. Russell Brunson's been nominated for an award. A lot of others. I don't know who's actually going to be there because there's 6 categories, and you can go to the site and see the 6 categories. And under each category, there's about 10 people nominated, and there's an academy, if you will, or whatever it's called, that votes on who the winners are. But actually, anybody can nominate someone for it. In some of the categories, still not too late to nominate people for. But unless you're a member of that organization, you don't vote on them. So uh, anyway, I'm going to be there and rubbing elbows with the rich and famous. Ice-T, whom I first took notice of when he was on Law and Order. He was playing a detective. Uh, and I'm laying in the hospital because they were doing some tests on me. And I'm strapped to a bed basically for a couple of days. And there's nothing to do except watch television. So I watched back-to-back episodes of Law and Order, and Ice-T was there. And that's how I first noticed him. And I go, whoa, he's going to be at this event, and I'll be on stage with him. I can take pictures with him and a bunch of others, So that's what I'm doing. When we look at, most of us are like online entrepreneurs. We are judged by the company we keep. And so to have pictures of you, I used to teach a concept I called success by association. And that basically means if somebody looks at a picture and sees you in a group picture, and that group picture is full of famous people, and you're not really that well known, well, they still associate you with those people and assume that you somehow fit into that group, and therefore you must be, of the same level of success or whatever. It's not necessarily the case, but so you step up, and in fact, there are people that I know that are very successful now, but when they first started out, they ask themselves, how do I break into some of these circles? And in some cases, the answer was you paid to play, so you joined a networking group or whatever organization, and you paid the membership to get access to certain other individuals who you did get to network with, like this event I'm going to in New York. Um, I don't know how many people will be there, but a lot of them will go there to network. And, they'll be rubbing elbows and exchanging business cards and taking pictures and shooting videos. I'm going to do some podcast interviews, two types. Some are where people are interviewing me, and some are where I'm interviewing people. And I'll go back and I'll take the video or the audio, and I will air it over my podcast, or I'll do some video blogging and things like that. And I'll put my content all over the place. So those 3 days that I'm in New York, when I'm not at mandatory functions, because they expect the honorees to be at group breakfasts and they expect them to be at a group lunch. There's three levels of access in this thing. There's a general admission, and there's a fee for that. And then there's a VIP, and then there's elite, I think it's called. And each of those has different perks. One, you get to do these things. Number two, you get a lot more access to the VIPs. You get one-on-one access to them. You get to be on hot seats. You get to go on sunset cruises. You get to have breakfast or lunch with them, all those things. And so I will be at all the breakfasts and at all the lunches where certain people have paid a little more for access to those things. My phone's going off. I will also, like I said, I'll set up a lot of things after hours just to get to know people, to network. I'm going there to network, and I should wrap this up soon. Yeah, I've gone half an hour. When I first came online in 1996 to start my internet-based business, I still had 6 years to go before I could retire from the Air Force. But I worked on my internet business by myself in isolation until a lawyer by the name of Dr. Bob Silver noticed some of the things I was posting on the Internet Marketing Warrior Forum. And Bob reached out to me and said, Willie, I'm hosting a seminar down at Hawks Cay, which is in the Florida Keys, December 2002. He said, I want you to come speak. And I said, speak about what? He said, well, you're doing well with your cookbook, and you on the Warrior Forum are explaining how you market. He said, and I want people at this event, some people who are making money doing something other than making money teaching other people how to make money, selling information on how to make money. It's sort of incestuous. He said, so I want somebody who's selling a real product. And I said, fine. And I went there, and I was bit by the seminar bug. And so that was December of 02. April of 03, I hosted my own seminar, which was a challenge, to say the least. But I did it again in 04. And in 04, I started Ken McCarthy on his speaking career. That was the first internet marketing event he ever spoke at. And, so I launched a lot of careers over the years from that. Stephen Pierce first spoke at my seminar in 2003. That was the first internet marketing seminar he ever spoke at. I don't take credit for, the success he had later on, but I was the first one to put him on stage, and even now I can reach out to a lot of these people. Actually, my bigger point is it's important to get out and network. If you're staying at home and you're operating in isolation, it's hard to move up in the world. But if you get out and you meet people, one of the things is, a lot of you guys are launching your own products and services, and yet you're having trouble connecting with people that have large lists, have a lot of influence. And you're asking, how do I get those people to work with me? I started a membership site back in 2006, and I interviewed like 60 different leading internet marketers of the day, and I asked them that question. And almost every one of them said, you'd be my friend first. Said, I like helping my friends. What I don't like is for somebody who's doing a product launch to come to me at the last minute when their product launch is struggling and saying, can you please promote my product, Instead, get to know me 6 months in advance. Show me your pictures of your kids and your dog or whatever, and become my real friend. And then I'll work with you. I'll enjoy helping you. I won't promote products that are shoddy or whatever, because that'll cost me credibility, hurt my business, and hurt my customers. So I won't